Shohei Ohtani just signed the richest contract in MLB history, like by a lot, and that made me curious about which of the other largest contracts have worked out in their team's favor and which ones should have never been signed. Now, a lot of these contracts are fairly recent, so I will have to predict what the outcome is going to be rather than the current outcome. The 22nd richest contract, however, is not recent and has concluded, so I can fully rank that contract without the player making me look stupid in the coming years. The player in contract is Justin Verlander's 10-year, $219 million contract, which started in 2010 with the Detroit Tigers, where he'd pitched for them for 7 years before trading him to the Houston Astros. On the Astros, Verlander won a World Series before his contract ended. This contract was a truly good contract. He collected about 55 wins above replacement or WAR over his time on the contract, meaning he gained about 5.5 WAR per season. As of 2022, 1 WAR is valued at about $8.5 million, which means Verlander was providing about 2.5 times more value than he was being paid. Because of that, and the fact that he won a World Series, I have to give this contract an A+. It's basically the gold standard for a long-term extension. The 21st richest contract, unfortunately, was not as successful as Justin Verlander's, however. Alex Rodriguez signed a 9-year, $232 million contract with the New York Yankees in 2008. A few years later, he was suspended the entire season for PED usage, got into many altercations with the Yankees captain Derek Jeter, and just not nearly as good as he had been the prior years. He was still an above-average player, but probably not worth the $25 million per season. I'll give this contract a C-. There are much more valuable contracts, but also much worse contracts later in the list. Moving on to the 20th biggest contract in Major League Baseball history with Albert Pujols' 10-year, $240 million contract with the Los Angeles Angels. The Albert Pujols falloff is extremely well documented and kind of crazy. Pujols averaged just 1.3 WAR on average for his 10-season contract, generating just 13 wins for the Angels. He was only an All-Star once in these 10 years and didn't get a single MVP vote that season. His contract was so bad that he even got DFA'd by the end of his contract. I'm giving him a D-, but he really could have gotten an F if I was in a worse mood while creating this video. At number 19, we have another legendary player who sadly fell off by the end of their final contract, and that was Tigers legend Miguel Cabrera. Miggy was one of the game's best hitters at the time of signing the contract, but he was also entering his age 33 season. In the end, it was a massive overpay to keep your franchise's greatest all-time player around. He was technically the worst contract on the list according to WAR, averaging just 0.3 WAR every season while getting paid $240 million over 8 years. But because he was somewhat paid for what he did earlier in his career, I'm willing to give the Tigers a D+. At least he wasn't DFA'd by the end of it. Coming in at the 18th largest contract ever is the man himself, Anthony Rendon. I don't really need to say too much about this one. He got a $245 million contract over 7 years, and he has basically done nothing for his team in the process. Well, other than try to slap a fan, get into multiple media altercations, and forget how to speak English. But apart from that, he's done nothing on the baseball field, so that's good, right? F- for Rendon. The only player that had signed a worse contract than Rendon's was his former teammate who signed the exact same contract in the exact same offseason, Stephen Strasburg. I feel terrible for Strasburg, but he had to retire just 4 years into his 7-year, $245 million contract due to his nerve damage. And he pitched just 7 games over the course of those 7 years. That's $35 million per game. He's getting a Z because it's like the 4th highest average salary, and instead of yearly rate, it's on a per game basis. Alex Rodriguez pops on this list once again at the 16th biggest contract, which is absolutely insane. He's a very wealthy man. A-Rod was paid even more money by the Rangers, where he played just 3 seasons before being traded away to the New York Yankees. However, those 3 seasons with the Rangers were 3 of the best seasons of A-Rod's career. And when he went to the Yankees, he didn't slow down. He only played 7 seasons of his 10-year, $252 million contract before receiving another record-breaking extension. But In those 7 seasons, he was insane. He averaged 7.1 WAR, which values him at almost $60 million per season. And over those 7 years, he was making just $25 million. He also never hit less than 35 homers, won 3 MVPs, and was an all-star in every single season. Easily, this contract has to be an A+, truly one of the greatest contracts ever. Nolan Arenado signed a 9-year, $275 million contract with the Colorado Rockies, which seemed like a pretty solid deal at the time. However, the Rockies decided to trade Nolan just 2 seasons into that contract to the St. Louis Cardinals. Luckily for the Cards, Nolan has been great with them, gaining an all-star appearance in all 3 of his seasons so far. He is slowly starting to decline, and 2023 was one of the worst seasons of his career, so this contract might quickly spoil. But for right now, I think it deserves a solid A, at least for the Cardinals. For the Rockies, probably an F, because why did they trade this dude? Coming in with the 14th largest contract is Xander Bogaerts' brand new 11-year, $280 million deal. I'm sorry, this contract is just terrible. Don't get me wrong, I think the X-Man is a great player, but he was 30 when he signed this deal and will be getting paid through his age 42 season. It really doesn't help that he had a bad first year in San Diego, and this contract is part of the reason why they needed to trade Juan Soto for salary relief. I have to give this contract a D because it's too early to give it any lower of a grade, but man, I wanted to give it an F. Trey Turner's 11-year, $300 million deal is pretty similar to Xander's, however, I just like it a little bit more. Trey will only be getting paid until he's 40, which is too long to pay a player, yes, but I think Turner also has a much higher ceiling than Xander. This contract also is just too early to fairly judge, but for right now I'm going to give it a C+. I think this one will work out much better than the last one I mentioned. Another one from the 2022 offseason is coming with Rafael Devers' 10-year, $313 million deal, and this one is completely unfair to judge. Devers hasn't even played a game under this new contract yet, but he is a great hitter, and the Sox needed to lock up one of their guys. The price does seem a little high, especially with his awful defense, but because he hasn't even had an at-bat on this contract, I'll just give it a B for fairness. The first pitcher in a while is New York Yankees ace Gerrit Cole. Cole really turned this contract around this season, winning his first career Cy Young. However, he's had very little postseason success with the Yankees, and being on a 9-year, $324 million contract, you're definitely expected to perform in October. Overall, I don't think this contract has amazing value necessarily, but he's been healthy the whole time and done nothing but put up solid seasons in his first 3 with New York, so I'll give it an A. Starting out the top 10 biggest contracts of all time is one of the worst contracts of all time with Giancarlo Stanton's 13-year, $325 million contract. This contract was signed originally by the Miami Marlins in 2014 and then handed to the Yankees because Miami didn't want to deal with it. There are still 4 years remaining on Stanton's contract, and due to the fact that he's been injured multiple times over the past 3 seasons, and Brian Cashman said he expects him to get injured, he's getting an F. Because man, that's not someone you want to pay this much money to. 191 batting average in 2023, by the way. At contract number 9, we have a great contract with Corey Seager's 10-year, $325 million deal. His first season with the Rangers was solid as he was an all-star, but in 2023, he brought his game to an all-new level, earning 7 WAR while batting .327 and winning World Series MVP. This contract was the single biggest reason why the Rangers won their franchise's first World Series in 2023, and because of that, giving this contract anything less than an A+ would be stupid. Another great contract that really turned a franchise around is Bryce Harper's 13-year, $330 million contract. Bryce has entirely turned around the Phillies franchise and turned them into one of the league's best teams. Now, he wasn't the only reason why this team has been much better, however, it's definitely the single biggest reason. This contract might be my favorite that is currently still going on. Harper's value has gone down slightly since he's now a permanent first baseman instead of an outfielder, however, $25 million per year in this current market for a guy that has already won an MVP and is one of the clutchest hitters alive has to be an A+ contract. It's truly one of the best. Contract number 7 was destined to be one of the better contract extensions of all time before Fernando Tatis Jr. and his 14-year, $330 million brain did some very stupid things. During the 2022 offseason, he got injured by falling off a motorcycle and he hurt his arm. And while he was on the injured list, he got suspended 80 games for a PED positive test, which he said was due to ringworms. He also has a reoccurring shoulder injury that has popped up multiple times in his career. In 2023, he finally came back in May, where he was one of the game's most well-rounded players. He hit well, stole 29 bases, and won a platinum glove in right field. The best part about this deal might be he's only getting paid until he's 34, however. So he will never really fall out of his prime. If not for the suspension and injuries, I'd be giving him in the A's for sure. However, I have to drop it to a B- for now because of his past. However, I wouldn't be surprised if this turned into an A+ contract because he's that good. Francisco Lindor's 10-year, $341 million contract is a fair but slightly overpaid contract. He's a premium defender at a premium position, which adds a lot of value, and he won't be getting paid into his 40s. However, apart from a great 2023, he probably hasn't been worth $34 million per season, but he is trending in the right direction, so it's not terrible. I'll give him a C+ because it's slightly better than average value in my opinion, although I could see this ending up as like an A or an F depending on what happens. We are officially here, the 5th biggest contract in MLB history, which is Manny Machado's second mega deal with his 11-year, $350 million deal signed last offseason, which will pay him around his age 42 season. What is it with the Padres and signing players until they are walking corpses? He's making $32 million a season over that stretch and just won't be worth that once his defense falls off at his old age. The first extension was really good for them, this one was not. I'll give them a C- because it's unfair to assume he's going to be really bad later in his career when he hasn't really fallen off yet. The 4th biggest contract was another contract signed in the 2023 offseason. That offseason apparently gave out a historic amount of money multiple different times. This time with Aaron Judge's 9-year, $360 million contract, which is the highest average yearly salary for a player on the entire list. Well, apart from him. He averages $40 million a year and will continue to earn that until he's 40 years old and has had some injury risk in the past. However, he was the face of the New York Yankees and they had to extend him or fans would have rioted. It was probably a bit of an overpay, but they were forced to put the pen to the paper. Because of this, I'll give it a B+. The value isn't really there and the contract is too long, but it was the only way. Next up, Mookie Betts' 12-year, $365 million contract extension signed by the Los Angeles Dodgers, which was signed by the Los Angeles Dodgers 3 seasons ago. He's been an all-star in all 3 seasons of this contract so far, and in 2023 he posted an amazing 8.3 WAR. He's also only getting paid until he's 39, however, he's moving to second base full-time in 2024, so that decreases his value a little bit. His defense has also gotten a little worse already, so it might really decline by the time his contract is up. However, I think this is a solid contract and I'm giving it an A-. The second largest contract was the largest one for the last 4 years before this week, and it's superstar Mike Trout and his 12-year, $426.5 million contract. Trout was the best player in baseball without a question at the time of this contract, and the contract extension was a no-brainer for the Angels. However, since then, Trout has been hurt a lot, including multiple serious back problems and a couple of lower body injuries as well. When he's played, he's still been one of the best players in the game. However, the injuries have really slowed down his counting numbers. He still has 7 seasons left on this massive contract, which will pay him into his 40s, so he has plenty of time to change the outlook on this contract. However, right now he's not worth $5 million more per year than Mookie Betts, that's for sure. He's still averaging 4.1 WAR per season through the last 4 years, even though he's missed so much time with injury, and that means even while being hurt, he's still basically been worth what he's getting paid. All that says is just how generational Mike Trout really is. Because of all of this, I just have to give this contract a B. If he were healthy, we'd probably be looking at an A+, so hopefully he can get healthy and turn this around. And finally, the biggest contract in MLB history signed just this week by the unicorn Shohei Ohtani. Shohei signed a 10-year, $500 million. Oh wait, more? Wow, okay. Shohei signed a 10-year, even more. Shohei signed a 10-year, $700 million contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers. $700 million. This is the single biggest contract in American sports history, so grading it is extremely hard. However, Shohei is still Shohei, and he's the greatest athlete in the world. So even though he's making $70 million per season, $30 million more than the guy in second place on this list for yearly average, I'm going to give the Dodgers an A for landing this guy. No matter the price, he's simply that good. If you like this video, you can subscribe here and help me out. And if you want to watch another, YouTube thinks you'll like this one too, so watch if you're interested.